From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill has a new chancellor. James Measer got the committee nod and was introduced to the university community Friday. Measer will officially report to work in South Building in August, leaving behind the chancellor post at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 9th edition of Carolina Week. I'm Jacqueline McClary.
And I'm Fred Shropshire. We're glad to be bringing you news about Carolina events and issues. We begin with UNC's new chancellor. The UNC Board of Trustees made the Measer selection public after an emergency meeting and vote of approval Friday morning. Carolina Week reporter Kimberly Stewart gives us a closer look at UNC's newest leader.
Nothing could be finer than to be at Carolina, or at least that's what UNC-Chapel Hill's chancellor-elect believes.
I can't tell you how excited Susan and I are to be here.
After considering 145 candidates, the Chancellor's Search Committee chose James Measer on April 14th. He'll be the new leader, and what they believe is the right pick for UNC.
To get the right fit, and we believe Chancellor Measer is the right fit.
For a chance to meet Measer, students and faculty crowded around to congratulate him. Freshman William McKinney hopes the new chancellor will address student concerns.
I think he has a lot of good ideas and a lot of good initiatives regarding diversity and hiring and fundraising, and I think those are two things the university obviously is in need of.
Beginning August 15th, 2000, Chancellor Measer will be here in his new office at Carolina, and he's looking ahead to make UNC the top public university in the country.
To say that we aspire, that we're very proud to be the third best university in the United States, but we want to be better than that.
Though he's never lived in North Carolina, he sports the Carolina blue colors and says he's always been a Tar Heel fan.
Well, I'm a Tar Heel fan. It wasn't hard. I've actually pulled for the Tar Heels all year long in basketball. I was so glad to see them really come along.
So the 8th-month search is over, with the spring semester also drawing to a close. But the future of UNC will have a new face and a new beginning. In Chapel Hill, I'm Kimberly Stewart, Carolina Week.
Measer, an organ player with a music degree, was also being considered for president at the University of Florida, but decided to settle here in Chapel Hill. Coming from a music background, one of Measer's first priorities is likely to be UNC's music library. The library, located in the cramped and condemned basement of Hill Hall, is an eyesore for visitors and students. In addition to the pipes laden with asbestos that line the low ceilings, the library is prone to frequent leaks. Students and professors in the music department say they hope the library will soon see improvements with Measer's arrival.
Another building on campus will soon see some major improvements. Two UNC-Chapel Hill students broke ground on the South Lawn Friday to mark the beginning of the Student Union Expansion Project. The $3 million project will include more rooms for student organizations, more lounges, and more snack facilities. Students were able to get a sneak preview of the construction plans while eating free food from local businesses. Construction is scheduled to begin on June 1st. UNC students do more than just study and socialize. They also help others. Despite the nasty weather on Saturday, more than 600 volunteers showed up to participate in the first UNC Service Project Day. With more than 30 activities to participate in, everyone had a job. Students even groomed the school's outdoor theater by dumping mulch around the entrance. Volunteer Carolyn Mazzatelli hopes a greater message is being sent other than just one day of service.
It's kind of through Carolina Center for Public Service. As a university, we have a commitment to public service, and so we developed this day to not only show our commitment, but also to inspire hopefully people who do a project today to continue to do it in the future.
After checking in at 8:30 in the morning, volunteers dispersed throughout Orange County for the day. Some braved the rain at the local Harris Teeter to collect canned foods, and others kept dry by polling citizens in the area about their knowledge of the Red Cross and other nonprofits. Later in the afternoon, Lorelai's, Clef Hangers, and Chips performed to wrap up Service Day.
A number of UNC-Chapel Hill students are upset about what they describe as a violation of their civil rights. The students were among thousands of marchers who were arrested during peaceful protest in Washington, D.C.
In a show of solidarity and anger, UNC students marched among thousands to the World Bank to try to stop world finance leaders from meeting. In a press conference Tuesday, students said they met police opposition during what they say was an exercise in free speech.
Repeatedly, the organizers asked, "We want to leave," and the police never answered, never let us go. So the situation was a group of people who were asking to just go home, and that never happened.
Protesters encountered police in riot gear who shot tear gas, pepper spray, and smoke bombs into the crowds. Protesters feel the police overreacted to the whole incident.
We were not people who were chained together. We were not trying to block traffic. We were walking down the street, holding signs and chanting, and this was a traffic violation.
Marchers were arrested and held overnight and say the police later mistreated them.
Basically, we were denied food and water.
I just feel like our civil rights were entirely violated, and this was completely illegal.
At least 22 UNC students were arrested Saturday. Most of those in jail were released Sunday. Despite the tumultuous outcome, the students don't want people to overlook the purpose of their protest.
Yes, we were in jail, and yes, our civil rights were violated. But we also need to focus on the issue of the IMF. And it was the protesters against the IMF, the World Bank, and that needs to be absolutely clear.
More than 200 Triangle area residents marched in Washington. The demonstrators wanted to show solidarity with countries they say are trapped in poverty because of loans they must repay to the IMF and World Bank.
A second look from an educated perspective, that's what some renowned law schools are doing across the country.
Find out more on how scholars are challenging our judicial system when Carolina Week continues.
UNC-TV brings you the best seat in the house, yours.
About 15 universities across the country have programs where law students work with inmates on death row who claim innocence. UNC-Chapel Hill is one of these universities. Carolina Week reporter Heather Higgins has more on the Innocence Project.
Many North Carolina inmates fear this door may never open for them. These small living quarters are home to the about 200 inmates on death row. Some question whether all the prisoners behind these walls deserve to die. 2 UNC law students say no. Jennifer Horvath, Marian Hone, and other law students receive about 40 letters a week from prisoners who seek freedom.
I think the majority of them say, okay, I need some cases, I need some statutes, I have such and such problem here in prison, or there's such and such problem with my case, can you help?
The Innocence Project began this past September. About 40 law students file through stacks of letters and decide which cases deserve further investigation.
The project members first decide to take on a case. Then the inmates are sent a questionnaire like this, asking them questions about their testimony and about their case. Finally, the communication process begins. But Horvath says you have to be careful.
I think students will probably start visiting people, but I think part of what we're concerned about is we don't want to get people's hopes up if we're not going to continue their claim.
Currently, the Innocence Project is working on about 15 innocence claims. The students have decided to do further investigations on some of these cases in the hope of gaining freedom for innocent inmates. In Chapel Hill, I'm Heather Higgins, Carolina Week.
The Innocence Project hasn't freed anybody, but the faculty advisor did help free an innocent man in 1995. Tennessee performed its first execution in 40 years on Tuesday. 44-year-old Robert Coe was convicted of the 1979 rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl. Tennessee is the last southern state to use the death penalty since its nationwide reinstatement in 1976.
Survivors, family members, and rescuers gathered for the 5th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. They gathered to dedicate a $29 million memorial. 168 stone chairs now occupy the spot where the Alfred P. Murrow Federal Building once stood. Each chair represents one person killed in the explosion. The bombing was the deadliest on U.S. soil. Timothy McVeigh was sentenced to death in connection with the bombing, and co-conspirator Terry Nichols was sentenced to life in prison. Another sad anniversary will be observed Thursday. April 20th marks the 1-year anniversary of the Columbine High School shootings. Last week, we brought you the story of a Chapel Hill priest and his battle with major depression.
Carolina Weeksley Skinner joins us now with the rest of the story.
That's right, Fred and Jacqueline. When we left Father Philip Leach last week, it seemed he had lost his fight with major depression. He was thinking about suicide and he wasn't sure where to turn. He was seeing a therapist, but he needed more.
What I wanted was just for it all to end. I just didn't want to feel that bad anymore. And the only way I could imagine it was through death.
Father Philip's depression had taken over his life. He was experiencing the typical signs of major depression. They include sadness that lasts at least 2 weeks, irritability, change in sleep pattern, fatigue, impaired concentration, loss of pleasure, and thoughts of death.
I was like Michael Jordan, you know? But every time I got on the court kind of, rather than being level, suddenly went like that. And oftentimes I made good shots, but was constantly running uphill, you know, literally. And then, so when I took the medicine, it seemed like the floor leveled out and I was able to use my natural talent.
While medication helps lift Father Philip's depression, so does therapy.
Like other biological illnesses, it certainly can be influenced by psychological and social aspects. So we don't want to simply give a patient a pill, whether it's for depression or pneumonia. We want to talk to them, give them support and understanding about their illness and how they can care for themselves.
That combination of therapy and medicine worked for Father Philip.
My prayer life is better. My relationships with my family are much better, and I feel like maybe I'm getting a chance to pay back my parishioners now, because for so long they were my supports, and maybe now I can be there for them in a way that I wasn't able to when I was depressed.
Though major depression causes suffering, great suffering, many people don't seek treatment. But therapy, and in some cases medicine, can help recovery begin. Fred and Jacqueline?
Lee, help us understand, if you can, how we can tell if someone close to us needs therapy.
Well, it's when someone feels like he can't handle his problems alone. When you feel like there's nowhere to turn, that's when you need to go find therapy. But the real problem is finding a therapist that's right for you. And what you need to do that is make sure that it's a therapist you feel comfortable with and someone that you can trust.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
Thanks so much. A widely known author of children's science books visited UNC's campus Tuesday. Seymour Simon spent an hour talking about the planets with some of his youngest fans. Children gathered in the Moorhead Planetarium to listen to Simon's galactic facts and how exactly he published his first few books. After the presentation, Simon signed many of his books for the children, using his key phrase, "Happy Space." The event was part of this year's Susan Stein First Memorial Lecture for the School of Information and Library Science.
I was actually a member.
Sunny skies and spring-like temperatures.
When we come back, find out what our weather's like for the upcoming week.
The steps of Wilson Library receive no sunshine on early winter mornings, so it's chilly there if you don't have that double-shot caramel espresso. Surrounded by forever green magnolias, the steps are a fine place to study, or at least pretend to, while you watch a border collie chase a frisbee in the quad. No one knows the real Carolina like a student. Carolina Week, the student news show.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition. We have liftoff. Join the next mission aboard the Moorhead Planetarium. For more information on Sky Rambles, call 549-6863.
So Kimberly, what's going on with this mixed bag of weather that we've had here recently?
Well, you're right, Fred. Our weather's been pretty bad, but we might have some good weather, Fred and Jacqueline, for our Easter weekend. Those of you who knew about those thunderstorms, they are pretty severe, if you ask me. But thunderstorms, then again, are very likely this time of year. Well, let's take a look at our weather question, which also has to do with thunderstorms. Where is the place that one is most likely to be struck by lightning? Is it A, Texas, B, Florida, C, Georgia, D, North Carolina? Now, if you think this is a little tricky, it is. Actually, all of these states have high counts of lightning each year. I'll have your answer at the end of our forecast. Well, it wasn't a choice in our question, but California also got some heavy lightning. There was a lot of smashed cars and severe thunderstorms, but Southern California was just pounded with rain. And as you see here, downed trees and some damage, and people probably driving when they shouldn't be with those rains flooding the area. But then again, people have to get somewhere when they want to get somewhere. So anyway, we are looking again at our weather city, which is Broome, Australia. You may not have heard of it, but it's a town about to be pounded again by a powerful cyclone. And the cyclone is called Rosita. Cyclone Rosita weather officials, say it's the most powerful storm to hit Australia. Weather conditions for the area, a high of 93 degrees. Wow, that's pretty warm, and the lows are only in the highs that we're actually experiencing now. Taking a look at our pollen levels for the week, if you're around those oak trees, then beware, because don't park. You're going to get a big old thing of pollen on your windshield. We have trees with very high levels of pollen, weeds not quite as high, but then again, allergy officials say that this season has been one of the highest levels with pollen, and a lot of people getting those allergies, a lot of people getting sick. Forecast, we have Friday, scattered storms to maybe wash off some of that pollen. Saturday clearing out with a high of 68 and a low of 44. Sunday we're warming up a tad bit with a high of 72, low of 45. And Monday again, we're hitting that high mark of 75 with the low of 48. Now if you're heading into our beaches, not as dry conditions there. They're getting some severe thunderstorms possible with highs in the lower 70s and low in the upper 50s. So Jacqueline, Fred, have y'all thought about an answer? We've been talking about thunderstorms throughout our forecast. So
Florida.
Most definitely, I think it's Florida. I've lived in all of those cities and all those states, and I think it's Florida.
Well, you're right. Florida is the answer. But, however, Texas, Georgia, and North Carolina are all top states that lightning is hitting. And North Carolina is actually the third in the country with lightning deaths.
Great. Thanks so much. Staying alive, that's what the UNC lacrosse team is all about.
Stay tuned to Carolina Week for the latest Tar Heel hopes of making the playoffs.
I need a break.
Yeah, well, what I need is a little peace and quiet when I come home. I've been working hard all day.
You have got to do something about that son of yours. I can't stand it anymore.
Well, maybe if you were a better mother, he wouldn't be such a problem.
Better mother? When do you ever spend time with him?
Family Counseling Service of Durham. We can help. Call 286-3757.
Let your knowledge grow at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. Through public service, research, conservation, and education. The garden brings North Carolina's rich natural heritage to you. It's a beautiful way to learn.
Well, as the school season closes down, how about the sports season? Same for it?
Yeah, pretty much, Jacqueline. Most of the games are not going to be on campus anymore, mainly because most of the teams are starting their ACC tournament schedule, including one team that needs a strong showing if it wants to continue playing this year. The men's lacrosse team's home season is almost finished, but the Tar Heels' NCAA playoff chances aren't over yet. Carolina kept its postseason hopes alive with a 15-9 win against the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. The Heels broke the game open with a 6-goal third quarter as UNC snapped a 4-game losing streak. Carolina's attackmen led the way as ACC Player of the Week Matt Crofton scored 4 goals along with 3 assists, while Jeff Sonke found a net 3 times. Chase Martin added 3 assists and says the win was big in more than one way.
We had a lot of trouble these past 4 games, just getting a win. We had a lot of tough teams, and this was just enormous as far as our NCAA hopes. We had to get this one to keep our momentum going and actually get some momentum and then keep it going into the ACC tournament.
Carolina will now prepare to take on Virginia in the ACC tournament Friday night in Maryland. The women's lacrosse team also got a win this weekend, spanking Ohio State 13-4 on Sunday. Seniors such as All-American Megan Moeller and Gray McNair played their final game at Henry Stadium. Moeller scored first for the Tar Heels. Then Eden Relihan and a host of others continued the onslaught. Kelly Thompson scored 4 goals and had 1 assist. The number 1 seed Tar Heels also head to Maryland. The women played Duke in their ACC tournament this weekend. And while the lacrosse teams are preparing for their conference tournaments, another program readying for ACC championship competition is Carolina's track and field team. The Tar Heels overcame the soggy conditions at Fetzer to sweep both the men's and women's overall competitions in the 4-team U.S. Collegiate Series on Saturday. On the women's side, UNC winners included Jill Pedretti in the shot put, Letitia Shitu in the 100-meter high hurdles, and Eddie Wynn in the 400-meter dash. On the men's side, they were led by freshman Blair Woodward, who won both the long jump and the 110-meter hurdles. Carolina track and field will next compete in the ACC Outdoor Championships Friday and Saturday in Durham. The Tar Heel baseball players have battled through some tough games this season, but one member of the team is fighting a personal battle in which a win for him is much more crucial than a victory reflected in any box score. Here's Brian Strong with the story that you're seeing first on Carolina Week.
Bart Walker stepped into his junior year expecting certain challenges. Being a walk-on in a successful Carolina baseball program would be tough enough, but there was one curveball that the Moorhead scholar really never saw coming.
I first found out over Christmas break that I had cancer.
Doctors removed a golf ball-sized cyst from Walker's neck before they knew it was cancerous. After finding out the truth, they removed lymph nodes and his thyroid gland. The cancer known as lymphoma is gone for now, but if it makes an unfortunate return, it'll hit back before December. Walker's optimistic.
I realized that it was something that I just had to deal with. There was a very high cure rate, so I was very lucky, and the younger you are, the better when it comes to cancer most times.
The illness did force a few changes in Walker's young life. For one, he cut back on his class load in case he has to go back for more treatment. Another big change in Bart Walker's life was missing out on baseball. Walker missed 2 of the team's early road trips. But now Walker's got the chance to be back out here between the lines with his teammates in the outfield. And those guys make him feel like things are back to normal.
This is something that came about, and I'd known those guys, you know, for a couple of years now. And it doesn't seem like they're treating me any differently.
Walker's comeback's in full swing thanks to his loving parents in addition to those teammates. And he seems to have a new outlook on life.
I suppose I'm a stronger person. Things scare me a little bit less. It really puts things in perspective. There's some things that I'd worry about before that I don't really worry about now. The little things.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Brian Strong, Carolina Week.
Walker and the rest of the Tar Heels are back in action this weekend against Virginia for a 3-game set in Charlottesville.
Best of luck to Bart and the rest of the baseball team. Thanks for Sports TV.
Thanks.
If you want to shake off some extra pounds, the SRC has an aerobics class for you. Funk aerobics isn't a new class at the SRC, but it's one of the most popular. Students dance up a storm to their favorite hip-hop songs while getting a good workout. The class is offered Mondays and Fridays at 4:45 and lasts for an hour. Get there early. Space is limited. I scream, you scream.
We all scream for ice cream, free ice cream. Stay tuned for that scoop next on Carolina Week.
I wonder how Silent Sam feels about guarding the university from groups of third-grade kids. Maybe he's lost interest. We haven't heard his rifle fire recently. Still he stands, a steadfast defender of something. What is it? No one knows the real Carolina like a student. Carolina Week, the student news show.
Honey, we need to get away. Just the 2 of us.
You're going to have to get a full-time job. We're losing ground.
We don't ever talk anymore.
Susan will be ready for college next year.
We used to be so close.
We make twice what we made 8 years ago. Now we have less to spend.
I think I'm going to leave you, dear.
Maybe we could sell one of the cars.
Family Counseling Service of Durham. We can help. Call 286-3757.
It's not often we hear the word free anymore, and it really means free. But Tuesday, ice cream lovers formed a massive line outside of Ben & Jerry's, all for a free cone of their favorite flavor. National Cone Day has been the designated free ice cream day since 1978. That's when the owners of Ben & Jerry's decided to reward their loyal customers for making their first year of business a success. Even the Wendy's chill couldn't keep ice cream fans away. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Ben & Jerry's employees had given out more than 2,800 free cones of ice cream, and they still had 5 more hours to go. If you missed it this year, don't worry. Just be sure to be near a Ben & Jerry's next year. Same time, any place. That does it for this edition of Carolina Week. Thanks for joining us.
Be sure to tune in next week. Have a good night.
Good job on this.
If you would like to contact Carolina Week, our mailing address is Carolina Week, Campus Box 3365, or you can reach us by email at carolinaweek@unc.edu.